So nonchalant. Yeah, I fell.
That's how it's worked with the strap.
Yep, that's true.
We saw the mistake and the president left together. For his council that wasn't taken.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, exactly. Years ago. What are you here?
No. I was just meeting. I see your
Picture. You're so great. How many with you?
Right on.
Tom McDonald. Good to see you.
Yeah, Danny.
Good to see you. Thanks for saying that.
We would like to welcome everyone out to our City Council meeting this evening. We'd like to call this meeting to order. We would like to begin by having a invocation given by Tiffany DeWitt, after which the flag ceremony, Pledge of Allegiance, will be given by Pacts 1243 and 454.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered here today. Please bless that we all may be able to have open minds and open hearts to the needs of those that are in this community that we are so blessed to be able to live in. Help us to be inspired to the needs of individuals and groups. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Color guard attention. Will the audience please rise? Salute. Color guard advance. Color guard post the colors. Will the audience please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard dismissed.
Everyone stay up here in the front, and we would like to give you a certificate.
Color guard return. to you. Yep. Hey, David, raise the game. You raised right here, buddy.
Plus, I don't even ever see Greg anymore.
I'm going to do a jet flyover.
Well, you always one out.
Bomber.
It'll be a drone, but other than that.
How's it going, eh?
It's good.
We're going to give each of you a certificate in a few minutes, but we're going to picture it. We would like you to shake hands with the city council. We're going to let your leaders pass out the certificates to you when you go back and sit down. But if you go up there on the dais and shake hands with the city.
Thank you. Wait for the mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You did it. You did it.
We would like to go to item 8 and approve the minutes of the joint Orem City Council Alpine School District meeting on September the 20th, 2017. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have some upcoming events that I'd like to make mention of. On October the 19th, we have the Orem High School football game, and at halftime there will be a special award ceremony honoring Sergeant Wagstaff, who is a graduate of Orem High and was killed in Afghanistan. On October the 26th, there will be a grand opening at noon for the talent team at 892 North State. On October the 30th, there will be the trunk or treat put on by the Orem City Police and Fire at 6 p.m. at Mountain View High School. On November the 7th, we have the general election. November the 10th, we have the City of Orem Heritage Advisory Commission Veterans Day program, 11 a.m. at the City Cemetery. November the 17th, there will be City Council will be serving the seniors over at the Senior Citizen Center for their Thanksgiving dinner. On November the 20th, we have the lights on here at the city, 6 p.m. On November the 21st, we will have the general election canvass results here at this chamber at 6 p.m. On December the 5th, City Council executive staff will have a Christmas party at 6 p.m. at Sleepy Ridge Golf Course, and on the 21st, there'll be a City of Orem employee Christmas party at noon at UVU. We would now like to go on to personal appearances. We've set aside some time for people to express their ideas and concerns and comments, and would ask them to hold their comments to 3 minutes and give us their name. First, we have John Hoffman. Afterwards, we have Rosemarie Hoffman.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, my name is John Hoffman. My wife and I are Orem residents. I am appearing before you to request that an amendment be made to Section 22-6-10C of the Orem City Code so that horses, cattle, sheep, and goats are no longer included in the list of animals permitted in traditional residential areas on lots 1 acre or larger. My wife, Rosemary Hoffman, has spoken to each of you about the concerns we have of our own property being overwhelmed by flies and the smell of manure and urine on the property behind us that will soon have horses on it unless the code is changed. This proposed amendment would not affect current property owners who already have such livestock on their land and who live in traditional residential areas. It would only affect those who would do so from the time the code is amended. We drove around and looked at 76 residential properties in Orem that were 1 acre or larger, as shown on your zoning map on the east side of the freeway. Only 9 of the 76 lots had existing horses or cows on them. It's obvious that there is not a huge demand to have large livestock in residential areas anymore. Our proposal would not be met with a huge outcry from owners in traditional residential neighborhoods because the owners simply aren't doing it now. The rest of us don't want to wake up one morning to the smell of manure and the accompanying flies in our already established neighborhoods. We want protection from this. Although many current owners don't show interest in having large livestock on their land, new owners might, which would ruin the neighborhood for the surrounding property owners. We believe that a single property owner should not have the right to infringe on the rights of 1 or 2 dozen surrounding owners to enjoy clean air and the absence of flies when they walk out their back door of their homes, have a backyard barbecue, or have outdoor social functions at their home. The rights of one property owner should not supersede the rights of many other homeowners to enjoy their homes or have their property values decreased. In conclusion, it is now time to make the change to protect the remaining homeowners who surround those 67 lots from someone who's operating against current societal norms and infringing on the rights of others to enjoy their property. Thank you for your consideration in making this amendment that will protect the rights of existing homeowners.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My name is Rosemary Hoffman, and it's a pleasure to meet you all in person here. In addition to our concerns as just explained, we believe that the city would benefit as a whole by amending the city code to no longer allow horses, cattle, sheep, or goats in traditional residential areas of the city. But why, you may ask? The city doesn't seem to get many nuisance calls or complaints about large livestock. Now we know why. We drove to these 76 large properties that we could find. We have since seen a map that shows about 100 properties east of the freeway in traditional residential neighborhoods. But we found the 76. So, however, out of what we found, we discovered there were only about 9 properties in residential areas with these animals east of the freeway. And furthermore, most of them seemed to be in like-minded areas where other people had animals too. So naturally, the city is not getting complaints. So that leads us to the next logical question. Why bother amending the code then? The other people around these properties are not complaining. And that's also easily answered after our research. Now we know that there's probably 90 properties that could have animals on them that are in established neighborhoods and that have grown up without large animals in their midst. These residents are not expecting to be next door to the smell of manure and urine. They deserve protection. The 5 horses allowed can produce 90,000 pounds of feces and urine in a year. And the figures for 5 cattle are even more astounding, a potential of 222,000 pounds. So smelly waste like this does not belong in these traditional residential neighborhoods. The ordinance allowing large farm animals in the city is outdated. It's not appropriate for today. As evidence of this, the city of Orem has not allowed horses, cattle, sheep, and goats in traditional residential zones since 1974. These animals are only allowed in designated agricultural residential zones. Most of them are west of the freeway. It is time for the ordinance to be amended to reflect the current development of the city and the expectations of residents living in these neighborhoods. Most people do not know that these animals are still allowed in the city. I didn't. It's too late when it happens to you to try to change things. So we ask tonight that you take a definitive step towards discussing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll now go ahead and close the personal appearance portion of our City Council meeting. I don't believe that there are any consent items. So we will go on to our scheduled items, the first one being number 12, which is a public hearing on business loans of Utah. This is a resolution of the Orem City Council authorizing participation in the small business loan program administered by the Business Loans of Utah and finding that the appropriation of money to the BLU fund meets the requirements of Utah Code 10-8-2. Our presenters are Ryan Clark and Heather Scriver, and maybe Ryan, you can introduce the gentleman with you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for hosting us this evening. As you mentioned, Mayor, I'm joined by Mike Plaisir. He's the Executive Director of 3 nonprofit organizations, the Utah Center for Neighborhood Stabilization, Utah Small Business Growth Initiative, and the Business Loans of Utah. And he's based out of Midvale. And then I'm joined by Heather Scriver, our Deputy City Attorney, who has been heavily involved in the review of this agreement. To give some background on the program, when a business is emerging, oftentimes there are very limited funding opportunities. A lot of those center around venture capitalists that will lend money in turn for equity in a company. So for businesses that are starting up, that are trying to grow, trying to acquire funding, their options are very limited. They're considered not bankable by your typical bank loans. And a lot of those businesses don't want to give that equity up. They want to retain ownership as they grow their company. We're often asked, what is Orem willing to do for small businesses? Some of that is in response to projects such as University Place or other tax incentives that we've done with other large businesses in the city. We have a Orem revolving loan fund in place right now that uses federal funds. This often requires in fact, it does require job creation and matching funds to qualify, and so it can be difficult to qualify for that program. So the purpose of the Blue Fund is to strengthen these small businesses, create jobs, and provide economic opportunities, provide loans to those businesses that can't acquire funding from traditional institutions, to stimulate redevelopment and utilization of our deteriorated commercial and industrial property, and to provide cities and counties with opportunities to increase economic development through these small business loans. Some background on the program: a loan can be a minimum of $50,000 to a maximum of $175,000. They have to go through a rigorous loan qualification review that's done by experienced staff. One of those staff members is Mickey Grames. She used to run the Utah Micro Loan Fund program, and she now works for the Blue program, and she's been doing this for 10 to 15 years, I believe. Also, the bank that will be involved in the program, they will have a lot of input in this review process. This program also complements our existing revolving loan program and gives us another tool in our toolbox to help businesses. And also in our economic development strategic plan, there are a couple of goals that talk about assisting the retrofitting of buildings to improve their appearance along State Street and in our Civic Center. And this loan fund would allow for businesses to do facade loans or site plan or site improvement projects, such as refurbishing a parking lot or doing landscaping improvements. The types of loans, you can see the list here. It's a very wide range of what the funds can be used for. One of the needs is as some of these startup manufacturing businesses start to grow and their products come online, as they need money to help with their manufacturing and so they can acquire inventory. We have one business right now that is extremely interested in this program. In fact, I believe they've made their initial application, and they will be using that to help fund their production. And as they sell the product, they'll be able to repay their loan, their first set of orders. The partners in this program at this point are anticipated to be Ogden City, Provo City, Spanish Fork City, Box Elder County, and Weber County. In fact, right now Provo City is considering this same program at their city council meeting, and the first lender into the program is Zions Bank. Zions will bring or lend $7 million into the loan fund. The Utah Small Business Growth Initiative, which Mike is involved with, will contribute $600,000 to the fund, and then each of the government organizations will bring in $400,000. Orem's participation is, we're asking to participate at a $100,000 level, and this would enable us to lend $700,000 to local expanding Orem small businesses. Going forward, the loan program will look for additional lenders. They're in talks right now with another bank. The goal is that as this program grows and shows success, that hopefully we can participate down the road with additional funding. Also, as this money is loaned out, the city will earn interest on our participating dollars, and as long as those loans do not default, that money will come back to the city at the end of the 5-year loan term. And that would then give us additional funds to buy back into the program. This is a graphic that shows that total fund size. You can see the $1 million of subordinate debt that's made up of the city and counties. We're called the Class B lenders. Zions Bank is the $7 million, and they are the Class A lender. And then the loan loss reserve is US BGI, which is blue, and the $600,000 amount. When the city does a loan, for example, on a $100,000 loan, the city would bring in 14.285%, which is $14,286. The bank or Zions would bring in the remainder. If the loan is repaid in full, the city would receive back its subordinate debt plus interest. The bank would receive their interest. If the loan fails, then the city would be in first position to lose that $14,000. If the loan, for example, is at an $80,000 balance, the difference between $80,000 and what the city loses would be covered by the loan loss reserve. And then the bank would be in third position to lose money on a deal such as this. To participate in this program by state code, the city's permitted to appropriate money for corporate purposes, and we've done a 1082 analysis to determine a benefit to the city from participation in this program. The study has established increase in resources available to Orem businesses for economic development, a return of interest on money loaned through the program, an increase in property and sales tax base through the growth of these small businesses, and the realization of other associated economic benefits, including business and employee expenditures within the city and construction expenditures. The purpose for this appropriation is to strengthen our small businesses, create and retain jobs, and provide economic opportunities, and help stimulate redevelopment. And the appropriation is necessary and appropriate to accomplish reasonable goals and objectives in the area of economic development, job creation, and it'll help provide access to much-needed development funds that would not otherwise be available to these small businesses. So based on these demonstrated findings, there's an adequate basis for the City Council to find that the appropriation of money in the Blue Fund meets the requirements of Utah Code 1082. As part of this Blue program, we are to enter into a draft credit agreement with the Blue program, Business Loans of Utah. A draft of this credit agreement was included in your council packet, but the negotiations with the Class A lender are getting close to being finalized. There's a few small changes left, and so therefore we will not be voting on that agreement this evening. That will come forward to you in November, and I'll let Heather address that a little bit more so on how that will work.
What we anticipate is that sometime this week we'll have a draft of a final credit agreement that we will bring to or before the City Council at your November meeting. If there are no substantial changes to it, we will just place it on the consent calendar if that's appropriate. When the council does consider the resolution before it today, I do have 2 amendments that I'd like to propose. So when we get to that point, I'll address that issue.
And then any of us are available for questions. Mike knows all of the details in and out of this program quite well, so he's prepared to speak to that.
So I have a bunch of questions. First of all, what city has already signed and approved this?
None of the cities so far have signed it. As Ryan said tonight, Provo City is also, their city council is reviewing this. We believe that Weber County, they're anticipating the next Tuesday they will go in for approval. Spanish Fork is on November 7th. And Ogden City, they're working to get it on the schedule, but we anticipate that will be in the next couple of weeks along with Box Elder County. All of them has gone before their county or commission in their working sessions and been received with some enthusiasm and excitement. We don't anticipate any problems with them right now on any of those cities coming in. We anticipate they'll all 6 of those entities will. We have Box Elder, Weber County, Ogden City, Orem, Provo, and Spanish Fork that are all considering entering into the fund right now, but none of those have signed as yet.
I know you've been working on this for a couple of years, if that's correct.
Kind of in the initial, we started with Tom Christopoulos, from Economic Development Director of Ogden City, had an idea. He had a CDFI fund, and we've been working with him actually for 4 years on finding a way to do small business loans back in the community. We ran a program. It was a treasury program that went through the state of Utah. We ran that for the state of Utah from 2013 and are still servicing the loans on that. As that program, the treasury program, ended, it looked like the right time. So at the beginning of this year, we really fired this program up and started going out to the cities. Initially, we wanted to get a couple of lenders and 2 or 3 friendly, what we call friendly cities, to come into the fund. Then once we had it all put together, then we intend to go out and invite more cities. As we went out to the cities, there was so much enthusiasm to come in. We have 6 that have everybody we've presented this to is wanted to come into it. So we're starting with 6 cities and 1 lender. But as soon as we get this fund closed and we have the documents finalized and closed, our intent is to go out to other cities. As you can see, there's not a city in Salt Lake County that currently participates in this, and that's because we've talked to Salt Lake and City and Salt Lake County have heard of it. They've asked us about it. They're both looking at it. They both have significant loan funds, and I don't think they'll come in. But there's several other cities in Salt Lake County that I believe will join after this closes.
So what would the term of the loans be?
The loan terms, the fund itself is a 7-year deal. It's a 2-year to originate loans and then 5 years paying back. So any of the individual underlying loans that we make out to small businesses will have a maximum term of 5 years. And then on the fund loan with the lenders, each year we'll go out and extend that for another year. The idea is to keep this being an evergreen and keep going. And so every year we'll extend, so we'll always have at least a year in front of us to lend money. But the underlying loans will be a maximum term of 5 years. Now the amortization, for example, if we're doing real estate or equipment that require longer amortization, we can do a 5-year loan with even a 30-year amortization if needed.
And a balloon payment at the end. Okay. So where we would not be the first ones to be paid back, in fact, we'd be the first ones to lose.
Yes.
What is the, first of all, do you require a business guarantee and a personal guarantee?
Yes, we require a business guarantee. It's full recourse to the business, and then any owner that has more than 20% ownership in the business is required for a personal guarantee. And although the city is in first loss, I'd like to point out that our organization, USBGI, we've put in $600,000 So as Ryan said, on a $100,000 loan, what you'll typically see in small business lending is most of them perform well. But if you have a loss on one, it's usually a significant loss. So the city, we really have at risk on any loan. We could pay the balance of what the city puts in at just under 15%, and we would be responsible for paying the balance up to $600,000. So
would you do that?
Well, we're going to be required, the lender, Zions Bank, we're going to put $600,000 in their bank, which we cannot touch. They control, it's a loan loss reserve, and they're going to control if there's a loss, they're going to pay it out of there. So that money is committed. So, yes, you guys are in first loss position, but we're also, we're in a significant loss position on it, and I think our interests align that we want to make sure that we do good loans so there aren't significant losses for either of us.
So have you developed a model as to what the loan loss ratio might be?
Yes, we've looked at, based on our personal experience, we've run, as I mentioned, we ran it was called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which was a Treasury program. On that, since 2013, we loaned out, made guaranteed loans of approximately $54 million. We've had on that, and it's a short term, but on that we've had 0 losses. But what we did is looked at nationally on these type of programs and also locally and said, what are the loss ratios? On a typical bank, if you look at your typical bank loss ratio on a small business loan, they're much less than 1%, probably averaging less than 0.5%. SBA loans have a loss ratio of about 1.25% to 1.5%. We feel that these will be a little bit riskier. They won't qualify for SBA or conventional financing, so their loss rate, we anticipate that it will be higher than that 1.5%. Nationally, that rate's about 3%.
Okay, and hopefully the interest would make up that loan loss on that $100,000 that we invest. So
yeah, it will help to replace it. We're hoping that, one, the economic benefit of having the small business here is hopefully going to give some benefit, and then also that the interest that you get on the money that you loan
would offset the loss.
Yeah.
So I think this is a very exciting program, and I'm very happy to see this occur. Certainly small businesses they provide 80% of the jobs in our country, and we in Orem like to think that we're very entrepreneurial and one of the best places to start a business, so I appreciate the work you've put in on this.
Well, we appreciate your participation, Mayor, in this program. We're excited about it too, and as other cities, there's a lot of excitement out there, and we think this is a great opportunity. There isn't a program like this in the state of Utah. And in talking to small businesses and to lenders, we really have a lending desert between that $50,000 and $250,000 range, where it's hard for a business to get that. There's programs, a microenterprise loan, that they can get under the 50, and if they need over 250, they're usually of a size and stature that they can get that. But between that, and we're hoping this covers that, and hopefully it creates a lot of jobs and good for the city also.
I think it'd be great. Ryan, how would you publicize this if this passes?
We'd publicize it through our website and through social media, and then also through visits with incubator clients down at the Business Resource Center. Those would be our 3 main targets.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Seastrand has a question.
Thank you. I've been on a number of these revolving loan funds boards, and I've noticed some that work very well and some that struggle a little bit. One of the aspects that seems to be a key factor to success is not just the funding, but the mentoring and the connection with business coaching. Are there any requirements for these loan applicants to be able to be connected with the Business Resource Center or with different mentors that could provide the coaching and the mentoring needed to be successful?
There is no requirement for them to do that. However, we'll be working with Mickey Grams to underwrite these. She was the underwriter and responsible for the Microenterprise Loan Fund in Salt Lake. And one of her, what she will do is she'll not only help the business underwrite this, but then she'll meet with them on a regular basis. She's also a certified score lender, counselor, so she'll help them and then connect them to resources and provide those. And then she'll be out looking, because we think it's key also to make the loan. A lot of these small businesses are really good at their business, at what they do, but some of them don't understand the cash flow and the business. It really depends a lot on your cash flow. And so she's going to help them as they get their look at their financial statements, help them understand that cash flow, how they can improve that cash flow, and maybe what risks or issues they may have, and then get them the resources they need to help work that.
Would there be the possibility of, for at least the individual cities like the Orem, that we have a requirement that they be connected with a mentor or with an advisor as part of that process? And I'm not saying that has to be the case. I've just seen a pretty big difference between those that get the money and you never hear from them, and those that get the money and you hear from them once a month because they're connected to a mentor.
And I like the idea. I really like the idea, and I agree with you that I think that is key, and that's why we're excited to work with Mickey, because her past experience as a lender, she's also a CFO at a company, and she understands cash flow. And that's
so she would be the mentor on basically all of these loans?
Link to them. To connect them, I'm not sure what good that does, because how do you enforce it, and what do you do if they don't meet with that person? What do you do? And I think having he work for us, he'll go out and meet with them at least twice a year and go over their cash flow and introduce them to other resources, but you can't force them to go to them. But I think she understands the programs very well and the small businesses. I think that's we see that as a key issue also. I'm just not sure how requiring them, how you could. I'm trying to think of how you would enforce that. And how
it's just an accountability issue of rather than they get the money and you don't hear from them for once or twice a year, that say there's a regular checkup, there's an element of accountability, and it's not that we don't trust them. It's just that seems to be an element that helps improve the success of their ability to start a business.
If I could add in, we have the decision to send them to the Blue Fund.
Yeah. And
so we can try to influence them to work with a mentor of the Business Resource Center up front and let them know of those resources. That's something we
Are you going to keep them in? Are they part of your cohort of businesses you'd be working with, Ryan? Are you part of the oversight on that?
With the Business Resource Center, just
any of the ones that you refer to this fund.
Yeah, we keep in. Well, two of the Business Resource Center incubator clients right now have revolving loans with us, and we keep in pretty good touch with them and in contact and keep tabs on what's going on, and so we would anticipate doing the same with this program.
Okay. Is this fund available to students as well as to non-students, I guess?
Yeah.
So you view BYU incubator type funding?
It's really not for a startup. It's available to students, but we one of our requirements is they be in business for 2 years.
Okay.
So that they, if they're a startup, we would encourage them to go more to the incubator funds or to the microenterprise loan fund.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great comment, Councilmember C. Strand. Appreciate that. Councilmember Lentz.
So just on that note, and I apologize if this was in the presentation and I just missed it, but do you have something that just shows a list of the requirements because you mentioned they need to be in business for 2 years. Is there like a revenue cap where once they reach a certain size, then they no longer qualify as a small business? Do you have a list of those requirements somewhere?
Part of the purpose of this loan is to do CRA requirements. CRA requirement for a bank to get Community Reinvestment Act credit, the business has to have less than $1 million in revenue, and the size of the business, it's considered by SBA to be a small business if they have less than 750 employees. So it would have to meet the terms of a small business, but we have some general terms, but overall, we're trying to look at this as a bank looks at the history and says, here's what the history and how they qualify, and here's their historical cash flow. Mm-hmm. We're trying to look at the history, their story, and say what's their story. So it's a little more flexible than conventional, and we don't want to put too many fences around it so no one would qualify. If they qualify for this, they'd qualify for a bank loan.
Yeah. And there's no restrictions as far as only certain industries or types of businesses or anything like that?
There are anything that of your that's of a speculative nature, or alcohol or tobacco, firearms, any of your what they call sin business, or check cashing in sin businesses are not eligible for the fund.
Sam, some cities are picking what industries this loan fund will be available for. I think, for example, in Ogden, they're targeting composite manufacturers or outdoor equipment manufacturers. Here, we're proposing that it be an open fund, and not limit anyone to be able to apply for it.
Okay.
And just maybe on that point, one comment on that is the city, if it's referred, we hope we get a lot of referrals from the city, but we anticipate also that we'll get some from your bankers here in town that have a loan that just doesn't quite meet, and that they'll refer to us. The city has two opportunities to look at that. One, when we first get it, we'll do an initial summary write-up and send it to Ryan and say, here's some summary information on this business. Is this the type of business you want to do in Orem? He'll give a go-ahead to underwrite that. And then if it's in Orem, then Ryan will be on all of the cities and counties will have a representative on the loan committee. Only the city or county where that loan is that's going to provide the top loss will be able to vote on it. But at that point in time, Ryan would, or the representative from Orem City would be able to say, no, this is, after looking at this is not the type of business we want. So we can't force we don't want Orem to pick winners and losers, but you can say this fits our parameters or it doesn't fit our parameters.
Yep. As far as determining if it qualifies as an Orem business specific, because obviously if somebody from another city wanted to apply to our loan, we're not going to back that. But is there a requirement of what percentage of their business has to have its nexus here or anything along those lines?
The business has to be located in the city to qualify for the program.
So if they had a business elsewhere for a couple years but just barely relocated to Orem, would that 1 year requirement apply that, or 2 year, would that apply that they had to be here in Orem for 2 years?
I believe it would, Mike.
Oh, well, it was in business. We hadn't actually anticipated that it'd have to be in Orem, but that's certainly a requirement. The cities can make up the requirement on what business fits in their city.
That's one of our requirements that we'll have is if they participate in this, they have to keep their business in Orem through the 5-year term of the repayment.
So if and when we are voting for this, would we put that into the motion, or would we kind of set those terms after the fact? And
maybe, Mike, we didn't get this in the agreement, but at one time we talked that this was in the agreement, so we'll need to make sure
each of
it's in the agreement for Orem.
Are going to have different requirements that we'll put on our website and that hopefully they have on theirs, and that can be, and I would say to keep that, as things change in your city, you maybe want to change what business you're going to focus on and target.
Yep. And that was one of my questions too. If we decide something today, for example, and 2 years down the road we figure, well, we just want to tweak it, is that a matter of just updating a website or the application, or do we have to renegotiate the whole agreement?
That would be on our end.
Okay.
What our requirements are. And it also to note, we can pull out of this loan fund with 30 days notice and only be involved in the loans that have already been made at that point.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Councilmember Luray.
So it's my understanding that the $100,000 is coming from leftover CEDO funds. Do you feel like this is the best use of those extra funds, and you're confident that this is where we should put our money?
I think this is a great program. I'm actually really grateful that I was invited to participate in it. It's filled a niche of something I've kind of been looking for as a way to help our small businesses.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember McDonald.
So I'm not positive I understood exactly how you answered Councilwoman Luray. These are leftover funds? Are they federal funds? Where'd they come from?
So when the CEDO organization was dissolved, and their assets were liquidated. This is money that is left over from that liquidation.
Okay, sitting in a bank account somewhere.
It's sitting in a city general fund account right now.
When I sat, long before I was an elected official, I was on the CEDO board, and I didn't see a lot of successful loans there. Didn't see them go after personal guarantees, didn't see them collect many of those. I don't know what the loan loss ratio, but I'm glad I wasn't a professional banker on that board. How are we going to be different? First of all, is that summary, although be it not dotting every I and crossing every T, fairly accurate of the success of the CEDO before? And if so, how are we going to be different?
I would not argue with your assessment. We've been trying to collect on some of those loans before my time. Since then, we've done a little bit better. It also helps that the economy's recovered.
There is that.
But this is a different situation where the city no longer has to be involved in the loan game, doing the applications, doing the underwriting, and doing the collections. That will all be handled by the Blue program.
A couple more questions, if I may. So the goal is this is to be a revolving loan fund. The rates are I'd love to get loans at LIBOR plus, I think, 3 points or whatever you had mentioned earlier. These rates are going to be low enough that I don't see them covering the overhead. How's the overhead of this organization covered?
If I could address that, on the rate from the lender to us is LIBOR plus 345, which today, and it's going to be, the LIBOR rate will be match the term of the loan. So if it's a 5-year loan, it's going to be a 5-year fixed.
5-year LIBOR, okay.
LIBOR swap rate for the 5 years. On a 5-year, that today would put you at about 5.5%. On top of that, our loan rate to the end borrower is going to be higher than that. And a couple of reasons. One, we're going to make our floor, our lowest rate will be the highest SBA rate. And the reason for that is most of these loans, we feel that their way they're going to get out is going to refinance out. We hope the goal is to have them in 3 to 5 years. They've done better, and now they can go get traditional SBA financing. If our loan rate is lower than SBA, they can't refinance it.
Right.
So we want to keep our rate just above the SBA rate, and then that rate can be higher based on the risk. So if we see a risky business, their rate's going to be higher.
And that spread is going to be adequate to cover your overhead?
Yes, we're going to have a 2% administrative spread in there that will cover our overhead, and then there's what we call excess spread is in the credit agreement, and that's anything over the bank spread and our spread. If our loan loss reserve has been used, that money goes to replenish the loan loss reserve. If not, it comes to us. So we're hoping that there's an incentive for us to keep the losses down, and if there is losses, that we can replenish that loan loss reserve with those funds.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sumner.
Yes, in my mind, I've been just going up and down State Street with all the businesses, and most of them, or a lot of them, are under 20, even 10 employees. And then you gave the definition of a small business under several hundred. I'm a little afraid that this money might go to those that really don't need it. How do we make that division? I mean, these small businesses are so busy trying to keep their doors open, and they're probably the hardest ones to qualify. Yes. How do you go about soliciting them or getting them aboard, or is it just you go with the ones that really don't need it?
Want me to answer that? Well, I guess my answer to that, Councilman Sumner, is that this program is intended for those that cannot acquire financing through a traditional bank. So if it's a larger company, the odds are they're going to be able to get that financing through an SBA loan or through other sources. So this is for those businesses that can't qualify for those type of programs.
So really, number of employees isn't a big factor?
Or? That would be irrelevant in the discussion.
Thank you.
And sorry, just to clarify, you had also said it was a cap at $1 million in revenue, annual revenue. Did I hear that right?
That's for the CRA. That's not a requirement of but to be considered a CRA loan, that's the requirement.
Okay, because I was thinking, I don't know how many businesses are, if $1 million in revenue, I don't know how you could employ 750 employees full-time or even part-time for that matter. But okay.
Well, it depends how much their losses are. Right?
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Amazon? Okay. If there's no further questions from the council, we'll open it up to the public for anyone who would like to make a comment. Those who would like to come forward, please keep your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name. Seeing no one's coming forward, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of our public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any further comments from the council? Okay. Would anyone care to make a resolution using what our city attorney has given us as the new resolution?
Yeah, in light of the fact that we'll be delaying the final approval of the credit agreement until next month, I would propose the following changes to the resolution that the City Council has been presented. A new paragraph 1, which will just make some specific findings as to the requirements of meeting section 10.8.2 of the code. I would propose that paragraph 1 now read, the City Council makes the following findings. The appropriation provides for the safety, health, prosperity, moral well-being, peace, order, comfort, or convenience of the inhabitants of the city. And subsection B, the City Council finds that the appropriation meets the requirements of Utah Code Section 10.8.2 because it provides a net value to the city and its inhabitants through 1, encouraging, promoting, and providing opportunities for economic development within the city, and 2, repayment of principal and payment of interest on the appropriation. The second amendment I would propose would be changes to what now is paragraph 4. And paragraph 4 will read, the City Council will consider authorizing the execution of an agreement in conjunction with the Blue Fund, substantially in the form attached hereto as Attachment C, at its next regularly scheduled meeting.
So does that mean that we would need to take another vote at our next meeting?
We're anticipating placing it on the consent calendar, so it won't be a scheduled item.
Okay.
Councilman
go ahead.
Donald, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess being the first city is maybe a moment of pride for us, but also a moment of fear to be the first one in. So what happens if we're the first and there's no one behind us? Can we unexecute this next meeting?
Then we can be the first ones out.
30 days notice?
Yes.
Is our next meeting 30 days?
No. It'll be before then. But of course, we will not have entered into the credit agreement at that point.
Okay.
So
I just want to make sure we have friends in this race with us.
Yeah, we've had extensive meetings on a weekly basis with all of the other stakeholders in this agreement, and Mike can speak to this as well, but not only have the economic development directors in each city been heavily involved in this, but so have legal counsel, and everyone has indicated that they're on board and frankly quite excited about the prospect of the program.
I believe our brother of another mother to the south will be voting on it tonight to the affirmative. So, any other comments from the council?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay. Go ahead.
I move that we, by resolution, authorize participation in the small business loan program administered by the Business Loans of Utah, and find that appropriation of money to the Blue Fund meets the requirements of Utah Code 10.8.2, also with the amendments that Heather had just suggested.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We'll start with Councilmember Sumner.
Aye.
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 Resolution passes. Hopefully we're ahead of Provo time-wise, so we're the first.
Nice.
Anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd now like to go to item 13, which is a public hearing on a street vacation at 750 East between 800 and 900 South. This is an ordinance vacating approximately 0.69 acres of 750 East Street located between 8 and 900 South, and Jason Bench is our presenter. And Jason, would you like to introduce those with you?
Yes, this is Kathy Olson. She represents Woodbury, and I apologize, I forgot your name. If you could, Alan Argyle, representing ICO. Is that correct? Good time.
Yeah, nice to have you here.
I can plug in my machine here. So before you tonight is simply a street vacation. The Woodbury Corporation and Catania have purchased the properties that surround the street and are proposing to be a next phase of their development along in the University Place Center. Hey, Pete, could you see if we can toggle this? There we go. So the street location is on the southwest corner of 8th South, 8th East. You can see outlined in red. This is the proposal. It goes from 8th South all the way to 9th South. They have purchased all the properties that abut this street and are requesting tonight to vacate it. It did not go to Planning Commission. It comes directly to City Council. It's simply a City Council action.
Jason, it's my understanding you show homes up and down this street, but it's my understanding none of those homes are there any longer.
This is an old aerial. Yes, all the homes have been demolished. The Runner's Corner is the only existing building that's on that area or in the area.
Okay. And if the street is vacated, it's essentially going to be taken out for the construction of the buildings going in there. Is that correct?
I'll let Kathy address that if she wants to, but it is still going to be an access. It'll just be a private area to entering into their either parking lots or whatever. There still will be an access that they'll work with the city to exit
so maybe
out on 8th South.
Maybe she could tell us a little more about that. If you want to push the button there.
The main reason that we need it vacated is just to provide flexibility for what we're going to build there. We anticipate more residential and possibly some small retail in that area, and vacating the street gives us flexibility on how those buildings are located.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions from the council? You have not hit.
I'll hit it harder. There we go.
There you go. Councilor McDonald has a question.
I actually have a couple of questions. First, for Jason, if this street is vacated, will it prohibit people from entering onto 800 South, as seems to be the plan?
It will not prohibit them, no, but it will be a private access.
Understood that part. Now, for the citizens who are here, when whoever developed this land many, many years ago, they actually deeded the land to the city. Dedicated the land to the city without cost to the city. And when it's vacated, it goes back to whoever the landowners are, whoever the now landowners are on either side of it. Is that correct?
That is correct. If it's dedicated. If the city purchased it years ago, then we would expect them to buy it from.
But from our records, this was not purchased, so we're not giving land away. We're just rededicating it back to the original donors or whoever have acquired their rights, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Or to the new owners.
Well, whoever acquired their right was...
Yeah, this action, basically, the city council determines that we don't need it as a public street, therefore we're giving it back to the property owner.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Yes, Councilor Larry.
So when you vacate a street, they would now be responsible for snow removal and all of those sort of things that normally the city would be doing. They'd now do that?
Yes, and as part of their development, I'm sure they'll reconfigure and redesign. It'll be more of a, like you see to the Aston to the south, where it's going to be more parking and access to the development.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Councilmember Seastrand? Okay. This is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anyone wishing to make a comment, hold your remarks to 3 minutes and give us your name when you come up. Seeing that no one's coming forward, we'll close the public comment portion of the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any other comments from the council? Okay, well, I would like to go ahead and make a motion on this. I would like to move that the City Council by ordinance vacate approximately 0.69 acres of 750 East Street located between 800 South and 900 South. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We'll start with Councilmember Seastrand.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ordinance passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll now go on to item number 15, which is also a public hearing on a quarterly budget amendment. amending the current fiscal year 2017-18 budget. Our presenters will be Richard Manning and Brandon Nelson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We have, as you said, our quarterly budget amendment. Being the first one, it's just primarily recognizing things that have come up, and Brandon will lead us through this.
Good evening. So, these are the first quarter. Usually, most of these are grant related, as you may have seen in there, as many of our grants are fiscal year based, and obviously they grant those awards either right at the end of in June-ish or right here at the beginning of the new fiscal year. The list you see above, these are all grant related, either through the task force, the library, or the police department, and we do have the municipal recreation grant that we receive each year as well in that group.
How does that fit in with the library?
The municipal recreation grant, it does not. That's purely for the rec department.
Okay.
They've used a variety of different things at Lakeside Park, at the fitness center, and different other at the ballpark here at City Center Ballpark and the other ballpark down by the fitness center. So there's been a variety of different projects that they've done with those funds.
Okay. Because this is our budget is organized in funds, so is the sources.
Gotcha.
The top item on there, we also have that every year, obviously, as we try to divvy out the care tax money each year. We don't know the exact amount of the funds we are going to receive for the last 2 months of the fiscal year, and so we make a guess and as to what those are, and as part of the care appropriation process, that's included in that. However, this kind of adjusts for those allocations that have been made along with the actual dollars that were eventually received. And so that makes that adjustment for that. Go back one. You'll notice down at the bottom section, so this year we have separated the task force, the drug task force, into its own fund so that we can better monitor all of their specific money because they're quasi separate from the city, and so even though the city becomes the grantee and we are responsible for managing those funds, they obviously have their own charter to do those things, and so the bottom section there, the reason it's separated is because of that new separation for this fiscal year. They receive various fund sources from forfeitures that they receive as part of their operations, as well as the very top line there are grants that they receive each and every year as well from CCJJ, and so that just accounts for those and makes adjustments to. So every year the $250,000 we put in there for grants, again that's a kind of a lowball estimate, and then as soon as they are awarded the actual grant, we make the adjustment to the exact amount of the grant. And then this year, great, thanks to the working efforts of Vanessa in Palmer, right? Vanessa Palmer in the city manager's office. She was able to get us a Skills Trails Park grant. And do we turn over?
Okay, this is what this grant is going to be. Usually when you start applying for a different type of grant than you've applied for, you have to take several attempts before you get it, but Vanessa did such a good job. We got it on the first try. And as you can see, this is Timpanogos Park, and this is the area it will be located in. The dog park is down in the bottom left And it's got these 22 different features. And if you have questions on them, Vanessa's here and she'll answer them.
Very fun.
No, but I'd just like to congratulate her. This is awesome.
Excellent.
And I think we're going to have a lot of really excited teenagers and young people up there. So,
come on.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, we'd like you to keep up with the tradition of being the first one.
I will do it.
Down the track.
And I will do it in my suit as well.
Number 11 looks like your specialty there.
Okay, can I ask a question on that? So like at the skate park, occasionally they have accidents and some broken bones and stuff, and I would imagine could apply to this as well. How do we deal with those types of mishaps?
To my knowledge, I don't think we've ever had anything come out of our skate park. You know, I've sat next to the risk manager for years, and I don't recall any claims ever coming through that. I think it's recognized it's a hazard of the trade.
Okay.
I mean, I assume it'll be signed like the other ones where, you know, you assume a certain risk in going there.
The benefit of the skate park is it's right next to the fire station, you know.
Jamie, do you have a comment?
Mayor, just to note that there's inherent risk in everything that we do. I would anticipate that this program that we put together would have an inspection program. We would monitor activity at the park in the event there were, for example, a series of accidents in one particular area. We'd obviously pay closer attention to what's happening to see if something would need to be modified. But unfortunately, I don't think there's any way for us to immunize ourselves completely from hazards. I think we have to anticipate that in part we are going to get questions, and we're going to do our best to monitor and to maintain and to inspect and to manage this facility. But I don't want to give you the impression that nothing is ever going to happen, because everybody I know that has a bicycle one time or another gets hurt. But then everybody who plays soccer or football or whatever
so my son got hurt over at the skate park, but we
say Richard just jinxed us.
But we didn't do anything about it. Councilmember Lentz.
Well, and just on that note, my understanding is that there's lots of people in the community that really want to help make this happen. You know, get out there with shovels and hammers and things and work on this. I'm just wondering, does that create any additional risks if we have non-professionals, essentially? I mean, we had a great success with our Altogether playground back here. I don't think we've had, it was designed in such a way that I don't think we've had an inordinate amount of injuries, but does that open us up to any additional risk if we have volunteers helping out with that?
I can see that it would. And again, to Jamie's point, if it's built correctly and maintained correctly through a good inspection and maintenance program, then that's the best you can do.
Okay. Thank you.
So anyway, that's and like you said, a volunteer organization is helping out. Now, to keep in mind, this is only the grant piece of it. There is a matching piece that the city is going to use our some contingency funds to cover that match. So we don't need to do any kind of a budget amendment for that. That's just a transfer. The bottom item, you know, we've been coming to each quarter as the energy lease continues to have some funds in it and continues to earn some interest in that account. Then we budget amend so that we can use those funds for some small project at the end of the lease, or at the end of when we get rid of all of the escrow funds. Last year, right in June, so unfortunately just after we did the last budget amendment in June, we received a payment from Metro Water. That it was to go towards the construction of well number 10, which will be a new well. They now want to get those funds into a capital project account in order to be able to use them. And so, as you can see, we're appropriating the funds that we received in the prior fiscal year in the current, so that we can use them in the current fiscal year. Same concept for the bottom item, the exercise equipment. It's not, sort of, in a sense. The senior center has funds available. They have a fund balance, reserves, just like the general fund does. And quite honestly, they've never really ever used those funds. And so Carl came to me and they want to buy some exercise equipment for the senior center using some of those appropriated or some of those surplus funds. And that is it. That's it. Any questions?
Any questions
Any of those
from the council? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to make a comment, please state your name and hold your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing as how no one is coming forward, we'll close the public comment portion of our public hearing and bring it back to the council. Any comments from the council?
I've got a question, Brandon.
Yes.
If you can go back one slide. So on the skills course, is our budget $60,000 to finish that? Is that what it is?
I think it actually ended up being 65. It's a weird grant amount, match amount, but.
Okay. So that'll pay for the park?
Yep. My understanding.
If I may, so there was a total budget amount that was created for all of the features shown in the map above and in the pictures on the side, and that total project was, agreed upon and became the expectation for the $30,000 grant award from the governor's office that oversaw the award of this outdoor recreation grant. And so in order to get the $30,000, they said we had to complete the entire scope of the project that was submitted as you see it here.
And if I may add, of interesting note, Mayor, the city of Provo submitted a similar project, and they were granted or awarded $25,000. So kudos to Vanessa for getting us 5 more than Provo.
Yes, thank you again.
Where is she? Have her stand up.
Any other comments from the council?
Vanessa, you want to stand up?
Let's give her a round of applause here. While I might be the first one to ride, she will be the second one to ride. Okay, I would accept a motion for this ordinance.
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Okay.
Move that we amend the current fiscal year 2017-2018 budget as proposed.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Sumner?
Aye.
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 Mark?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The ordinance passes. Thank you very much, Richard and Brandon. Are there any communication items?
Mayor, I just have one item. You'll recall we had a conversation with the Sharon Park neighborhood several weeks ago in regards to proposed pickleball courts. We have since followed up and updated, modified a few options, sent those options out to the neighborhood for consideration, and Stephen Downs received feedback from the neighborhood representative several days ago, and we just want to share with you that feedback and provide you an update.
Sure.
You know, we've had communication. Jeff Ortina was kind of designated by the neighborhood to be the individual that communicated back and forth with the city. We've had quite a few conversations and emails back and forth, and they presented some options to their neighborhood on Saturday morning, and it was very well received. The proposal moving forward that they also recommended was a 6-court proposal, 6 parallel courts
on the south side,
taking out that southwest area. They looked at the additional proposal that had kind of the 2 4-courts that were split. The challenge with that is 8 courts starts to breed tournaments. And one of the challenges, of course, that we wanted to address was the parking concerns. And when tournaments start getting introduced, parking becomes more of a challenge. And in that neighborhood, we feel like that's not probably the best place for large pickleball tournaments. There may be another place, and we hope to find additional locations for pickleball courts. But the 6 keeps us within budget, we believe, takes care of a nuisance that the neighborhood had identified in the southwest. Also provides us 6 pickleball courts that we currently don't have available for public use.
So you will be taking out the trees there to the west and to the north of where the 6 will be, and putting green space back in and moving the trail.
Correct, yeah. So there's elimination of about 0.45 acres of green space. The original proposal called for about another acre. So I apologize. There's a net loss of less acreage than the original proposal had. About half the amount of green space will be lost because some will be added in. There are trees that will be removed with the proposal, but additional trees will be added back in the areas that make sense, that don't. We're not going to put it in the middle of the green space and eliminate that. So we're going to put back as many trees as we can.
Okay. All right, thank you for the update.
Just in addition, if I may, there were some additional questions from the neighborhood. For example, what will be the hours of operation for the park? And our response was, we're going to operate this park consistent with all the other parks. Obviously, we'll have some operating hours, and our intent is to make them accessible to the neighborhoods. But when it's nighttime and overnight, we don't allow people in our parks, and we would treat this the same way. There are questions relative to fencing. What are you going to do with the large dumpsters in the park? Is there an intent to continue with improvements in the park? All of these things I think we've tried to address and represented to them. Yes, it's our intent to continue to improve the park as means become available. It's our intent to operate the park in a way that provides obviously for community enjoyment, but is also respectful of the city, or excuse me, of the neighborhood. We're looking to modify the dumpsters in the park to discourage dumping. There was even some questions about fencing. How high is the fencing going to be? We're going to obviously. We had initially talked about some fencing that was 6 feet tall, but as we talked to some of the pickleball folks, they're saying, well, 8 feet is probably better on the exterior, 4 feet on the interior, so we're going to proceed with that. There was even some questions as to whether or not we could put some sort of fabric or mask the fencing in and around the courts. Obviously, the hesitancy we have about that is if we want to deter, mischief, we don't necessarily want to mask the courts or put any sort of fabric in and around the fencing. We are not going to be able to essentially provide everyone with everything that they need, but I feel like we've made significant progress, and I feel like the neighborhood's voices have been represented in this discussion probably to a greater degree than some of the other park projects we've had. So I'm encouraged with the direction that this has gone. We would like to move forward with this immediately. We still have a very narrow window of construction opportunity here in the next few weeks, and we can have a contractor on board and underway ASAP. So that's our intent. If you are comfortable with what we're representing to you, then we're actually wanting to green light that project tomorrow morning.
So can we?
I don't think we really need anything other than a.
Right. I just wanted to have each council member let us know if they approve of moving forward with this. Councilmember Sumner.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay. I'm good.
Yes, and then I do have another question afterward.
Okay.
Cool. Yep.
Okay.
So when I was down in Provo at their rec center on Friday, I noticed back behind on the tennis courts there, they instead of just having one pickleball court striped, they had it on 4. And I'm not sure, Carl, we already have some of our tennis courts striped for pickleball, correct?
Most recently, Cherry Hill, we just.
Yes.
So is it a 1-to-1? In other words, one tennis court equates to one pickleball court with a slightly higher net, or do we have?
Or space.
Yep.
Or space.
Yeah.
4.
It's one pickleball court per one tennis court, I believe.
2 pickleball courts per one tennis court.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right.
So I realize that it's a different setup, but they had enough space around the outside of their tennis courts down there where they were actually able to get 2 pickleball courts on each side of the net, and then they would just loan out the nets that they would just manually put out there. So if there are other areas where we're looking to restripe, just maybe something to, I'm not sure how that would work at a public park that's away from the fitness center, where how do you just loan out the nets and get them back? But I just thought it was interesting to see how they were able to get one tennis court into 4 pickleball courts rather than just one.
So I would like to thank Jamie and Steve and Carl and our staff for going out to the neighborhood, reaching out to the principal, the residents, the pickleball court community and getting all the input from all of them. I think we've ended up with a product that is different than any of us envisioned to begin with, but I think it meets the needs of what the people are in that area and for the pickleball people as well. So I'm proud of the effort that's been made.
I appreciate that. And Jeff Fortina, again, the neighborhood kind of liaison, expresses, and chatted with him just this morning again on the phone, again wanted to reiterate to you as a council his appreciation for the process that they went through. Felt the same way, that it's a better product than it was before. It addressed a nuisance that we really hadn't considered when we put the initial proposal together, and we feel really good about the direction it's going forward.
Great, thank you. So Jamie, let's move forward, and hopefully we'll have 2 new parks next year to enjoy. So thank you. We do have a birthday. Tom McDonald's birthday is coming up. Which day is it? Saturday. So for the council, we're going to have a little birthday to get together after this meeting in room 107, and I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.